The late 4th century BC, Alexander the Great's army pushes into the Indian subcontinent, testing the limits of the known world. But the real story begins just as he turns back. Alexander's abrupt departure left a massive power vacuum in the northwest. The region splintered into a fractured mosaic of vulnerable warring kingdoms, entirely exposed. Further east, however, sat a power of an entirely different magnitude, the Nanda dynasty of Magadha. This was the subcontinent's first dynasty to harbor true imperial ambitions. The Nanda Empire was built on a vast, highly methodical agrarian economy. They implemented systematic taxation across their territories, amassing a treasury so vast it became proverbial across the ancient world. This chart visualizes the scale of the Nanda military machine compared to standard armies of the era. Historical estimates put their forces at an overwhelming 200,000 infantry and 20,000 cavalry, alongside thousands of chariots and war elephants. Magadha had become a bloated, hyper-militarized fortress state. For any conventional army to conquer it was considered a mathematical impossibility. Observing this geopolitical imbalance was an unassuming scholar from the educational hub of Taxila, Chanakya. He looked at the fragmented western borders and saw an existential threat. Chanakya proposed a political concept that was out of step with his era. He argued that the disparate kingdoms needed to dissolve their petty rivalries and unite under a single cohesive national identity, a Rashtra. To realize this, he traveled to the capital of Magadha. His goal was to present his strategic assessment to the Nanda court, urging the king to secure the vulnerable frontiers. King Dhanananda, insulated by absolute wealth and power, dismissed the warning. He mocked the scholar's austere appearance and ordered his guards to forcibly expel Chanakya from the royal assembly. While the exact theatrical blow-by-blow of this confrontation survives mostly through ancient plays like the Mudra Rakshasa, historians align on the core event. A complacent, deeply entrenched political establishment violently dismissed a brilliant strategic mind. As Chanakya was thrown to the dirt of the court, the impact caused his shika, the traditional topknot worn by Brahmins, to come undone. Standing up in the dirt, he delivered a public vow. He would never tie his hair again until he had ripped the Nanda dynasty out by its roots. Chanakya had arrived at the court as a teacher of policy, seeking to reform the system from within. This humiliation proved that his scholarly advice was useless against raw tyranny. To save the social order, he would have to make the state itself paramount, placing political survival above religious tradition. He turned his focus to artha, the science of gain. In Chanakya's view, every activity of the state had to be aimed at a tangible benefit for the kingdom, whether financial, social, or spiritual. He wasn't just seeking revenge. He was forging a cold, calculated, and entirely new philosophy of power, designed to consolidate a fractured world. But a brilliant philosophy cannot hold a spear. To execute a coup against a standing army of hundreds of thousands, Chanakya needed a physical instrument, a warrior who could lead. He found that instrument in a young, highly capable adventurer named Chandragupta Maurya. Ancient sources are sharply divided on who Chandragupta actually was. Buddhist texts elevate him to noble bloodlines, while Brahminical and Puranic traditions identify him as a Shudra, born to a much humbler station. For Chanakya, these rigid caste hierarchies were irrelevant. He looked past lineage and saw only raw, latent potential for military leadership and calculated violence. Together, they formed an incredibly dangerous asymmetric alliance, a mastermind with no army and a warrior with no throne, setting out to systematically dismantle the largest empire in India. The tactical problem was immense. Two exiled men cannot simply march on an entrenched capital guarded by an imperial army. Traditional texts describe a moment where Chanakya watched a child burn its fingers trying to eat from the center of a freshly cooked dish. The lesson was obvious. You don't strike the burning center. You consume the cooler, vulnerable edges first. They applied this directly to their military campaign. Instead of attacking Magadha, they moved into the power vacuum of the northwest, slowly encircling the Ganges plain and converting border factions to their cause. Chandragupta executed a sweeping guerrilla operation. He exploited the shifting alliances left behind by Alexander, isolating and absorbing local tribes while actively driving the remaining foreign garrisons out of the region. Classical Western historians like Plutarch and Justin independently recorded a young Indian leader whom they called Sandarkottis, leading the charge to expel the Greek military presence entirely. By systematically dismantling the periphery, Chanakya cut off the capital's supply lines and allies. He turned the Nanda Empire's massive territorial footprint into its greatest vulnerability. In 321 BC, the trap closed. Chandragupta marched on Pataliputra. Starved of external support and rotting from internal unpopularity, the isolated Nanda establishment collapsed. Chandragupta seized the throne. In a matter of years, the exiled adventurer had become the architect of the Mauryan Empire, realizing the first true vision of a unified Indian state. In the quiet aftermath of the coup, standing inside the conquered capital, Chanakya finally gathered his hair and tied his shikha. The vow was fulfilled. Chanakya's victory established a political structure so robust that India would face no major foreign invasion for a full millennium. He had proven that a single strategist working from the shadows could dismantle a state more effectively than a conventional army. But overthrowing an empire is only the first step. To keep the throne against constant internal and external threats, Chanakya would have to codify his ruthless methods into the most comprehensive political blueprint of the ancient world, the Arthashastra,